When it comes to setting up a wheel, one important thing to keep in mind is that it's very personal. Some players like a heavy wheel, some like a light wheel, some have a cheap wheel, and others have expensive ones. Therefore, it's important to learn what each setting does so that you can find out what works best for you. Outside of the game, however, you may have extra settings on your wheel rim. These are different for every brand, though a good starting point is to leave them all at default and focus on your in-game settings. If a wheelmaker has posted official settings, try those too. In the settings menu, you'll find various presets for the most popular racing wheels. If your wheel is listed, this is a great starting point. Check the button layout and see if it feels right, though you may want easier access to key functions. Now that we've gotten the easy stuff out of the way, let's turn our steering into something great. The most important settings to get right on a wheel are those related to steering. When you turn the wheel, you should expect a certain response from the car, and if you don't get that response, you need to change things. In the calibration menu, open the button test, and turn your wheel 180 degrees in either direction. If the steering reaches 100 just before you've turned the wheel this far, you're in a good spot. Real-world F1 cars have about 360 degrees of steering, and if you're just getting started, I'd recommend matching this. If it hits 100 far too early, you'll need to adjust the degrees of rotation on the wheel rim itself. For Fanatec wheels, I find auto to be a good starting point, though your experience may vary. If it hits 100 only slightly too early, or not at all, increase the saturation setting. This tells the game where the maximum wheel rotation should be, and scales things accordingly. In general, you'll want your wheel to match the in-game one. Keeping the steering linearity at 0 should achieve this, once you've set up the rotation. That being said, if you want finer control over smaller steering inputs, you can raise this. Don't go too far though, as doing so will make it easy to over-rotate your wheel, making the car understeer. One more thing to check out is your dead zone. I recommend keeping this at 0 if you can. However, if your car likes to wander on the straights, then up this to 1 or 2. The car should only turn when you want it to. With that set up, it's time to put the foot down and get those pedals right. Before that though, hit the like button if I'm helping, and share your settings in the comments so that we can all try them out. The key to driving without assists in F1 games comes in how we control the pedals. You need to have confidence in their performance, so let's dial them in. Rest your feet on the pedals and open the button test. If the brake and throttle readouts are at 0, then you're good to go. However, you'll need to up your dead zone if you see any inputs. You don't want to be dragging the brake while going down the straights, or slightly holding the throttle at the wrong time. Next, push each pedal down as hard as you normally do when going flat out. They should reach 100, but if they don't, you'll need to increase your saturation setting. You'll want the full range of input for that fine control, especially when you drive without assists. Next, we have the linearity settings. Try to leave these at 0 if you can, but if you need finer control over the lower end of input, you should increase it. I like to have the throttle on 50 so that I can feather it out of slow corners. I'm also using a load cell brake, which is easier to modulate than a standard one, so I leave that at 0. Now that we can trust the inputs we send to the game, we need to get the same level of communication from the game back to us. It's time to believe in the Force and get good feedback. Force feedback is a highly subjective topic, as everybody drives differently. I play a lot of dirt rally, and now like to have a light wheel I can throw into corners. Other drivers like a heavy wheel, so that they can really feel the car pushing against them. Your strength setting manages the overall level of feedback you get from the wheel. This one is highly dependent on your hardware. Those using very powerful bases like the SimuCube Ultimate will have this set far lower than somebody on a CSL Elite, which has a fairly light motor. The on-track effects communicate the feeling of the road surface, including all those bumps and dips. There's some rather sharp bumps on a few circuits, and setting this too high might come as a shock when you go over them. A good place to test this would be the exit of Monza's final turn. Pay attention to the bump you might feel before you cross the start-finish line. If this is too intense, turn the setting down. When you drive an F1 car, you'll be looking far ahead into the apex or exit of a turn, and not necessarily down at your wheels. In order to feel the limit of the track, you need to get some feedback when you go over the rumble strips. Set it high enough to where you can feel this without shaking the wheel too much. Off-track effects are highly personal too. A little feedback is good so that the grass feels different to the road surface. This will help you find your limits. Wheel damper adds weight to the wheel based on how the tyres are behaving, almost like resistance as you turn. Again, this is one to play about with, though I prefer a fairly light wheel myself. One setting I have found incredibly useful though is the understeer enhance. When the game thinks you've turned the steering wheel too much, the feedback will get light when you go past the edge of grip. When you get used to this, you'll soon be able to turn the right amount for every corner and lower your lap times. One more way to lower your lap time is to turn off some assists, starting with traction control. Click on the guide on screen now to get started. In the meantime, thanks for watching and I wish you the best of luck in your next race.